And obviously their offense looks booming. But they've played Florida Atlantic, which was supposed to be good, but we found out isn't that good. UCLA, Iowa State only winning by 10, Army only winning by 7, and then they blew out Baylor at home. Now they got Texas, and I believe it's on a neutral field as well. South Carolina versus Kentucky. Wow, there's a lot of people wrong on this game. I am so glad I stayed off of this game. Kentucky is legit this year for sure, okay? They are legit. UMass versus Ohio. Ohio came out flat this game and worked their way to a tie at the half and ended up winning by 16. This was we were on Ohio and it was like minus 13 or 14, but it was a bad handicap on my part, but I'll take the win. Michigan versus Northwestern. Almost an upset here, but you can just tell when a talented team is down in the first half, it's always better to bet on them the second half. When the more talented team is down, that is when you fire that second half bet. It's another tidbit. You know, we had Northwestern plus 14 going into this game, but when Michigan was down at the half, they were down by 10. We bought back Michigan at minus 10, and we had a 14-point middle. And, of course, we hit that middle, and that was huge. But always do this, like I said, when the more talented team is down at half. Always. Virginia Tech versus Duke. This team came to play, Virginia Tech, and came to win. You know, they knew Duke was good, and they turned it way up for this game. They game planned extremely well. Huge props to Justin Fuente. I was shocked myself because Josh Jackson was out, but it turned out their quarterback was just fine. Oregon versus Cal. Huge get-up spot for Oregon, and they got the job done. Cal had a bye week before this and let down a lot of sharp players. There should be some value on Cal next week at Arizona. Stanford versus Notre Dame. Well, things really worked out well for the Irish. When, like I said, when they switched to Ian Book at quarterback, they pretty much dominated this game defensively, especially, and the game was over by the middle of the third quarter. Notre Dame is now a huge playoff contender with Vatech and Syracuse as their toughest opponents left. We'll see what we say about Vatech. I already have a play on this game. BYU versus Washington. Well, this one I certainly got wrong, and so did many others if you pay attention to sports media.
Wrong.
BYU looked just like a below-average team and nothing like the team that beat Wisconsin so well. I don't know what the hell happened to them. They couldn't miss against Wisconsin. The jet sweep destroyed them. They were blocking great. The kids were hyped up, smelled blood, went for the jugular. But this game, you thought that Washington was playing UConn or something. It was bad. Washington is still definitely in the playoff mix here. And then finally, Ohio State versus Penn State. This game went very similar to last year. You know, we gave out the first half under, and then we took the second half over, and both hit. Penn State gets a lead in the third and the fourth quarter, blows it late against some of the best athletes in college, next to Bama. Ohio State should be on cruise control now because Michigan State isn't that good. They're not. And Michigan isn't quite at their level. You know, they're not quite there. They got some really good players. But, I mean, maybe that could change, maybe. But we'll see. We bet this one correctly, though, and our members benefited. I also even said take Penn State in the first half to somebody and then take Ohio State in the second half. Should have done that as well, but I didn't. Let down spots. Ohio State hosting Indiana is a letdown spot. Clemson at Wake Forest is a letdown spot. Just because they hurt their quarterback and they got their revenge against Syracuse, kind of revenge. Notre Dame at Virginia Tech is a huge letdown spot. Florida State at Miami. They won at the very last few seconds against Louisville, last minute or whatever. But I watched that ending, and I was like, oh, my God, you're going to let them score an 80-yard touchdown. Tulane at Cincinnati is a letdown spot, and they beat Memphis. Not a lot of huge upsets, though, otherwise. Get up spots. Stanford hosting Utah. They better get up. Cal at Arizona. Mississippi State hosting Auburn. I can't believe they lost 2 in a row. Memphis hosting UConn. Yeah, going back to that Mississippi State, man. Florida went in there and beat them. We were on the under, but we lost on the side. We had Mississippi State there, so pretty pissed off at the way they've been playing there under Moorhead. Thought they had more, but huge props to Mullen at Florida. He's got those kids. He might have their heads straight, you know. He might have fixed that team. Yeah, did I say Memphis hosting UConn? They're going to have to get up after that loss to Tulane. Florida Atlantic hosting Old Dominion. Oh, yeah. Florida Atlantic. How did they lose that game? They lost it. They were kicking some butt, and then they end up losing somehow. And it was to Middle Tennessee State. They had the game in hand and choked it away. So they better get up for this next game. Syracuse at Pittsburgh is a get-up spot. BYU hosting Utah State is a get-up spot. Kind of a rivalry there. Not sure if I'm going to touch that one. Buffalo at Central Michigan. Buffalo losing outright to Army at home. I stayed away from Buffalo again when I saw that spread over 7 against Army. I'm like, ugh. Michigan State hosting Northwestern is a revenge spot from last year. Okay? It's a revenge spot. It might already be into the line. I got to take a look at it again. The early lines came out, but we'll definitely make a judgment call on that one when it comes out. Look ahead spots. Wisconsin could be looking past Nebraska to at Michigan, but they can't afford to do that. They already lost to BYU. Michigan could be looking past Maryland to Wisconsin. They shouldn't, but they could be. So keep an eye on that line against Maryland. Michigan State could be looking to Penn State past Northwestern, but like I said, it was a revenge game against Northwestern this weekend. So, I think I might be on Penn State in week 7 here. We'll see. Missouri looking past South Carolina to Bama. LSU looking past Florida to Georgia. Very possible. Florida, was down in the dumps for years, but they're better. And LSU's got Georgia on deck. Central Florida looking past SMU to at Memphis is very possible. I think Central Florida would just let SMU score at this point. Washington looking past UCLA to at Oregon. That's very possible. This could be a very flat spot for Washington. Just could be flat, Anything in the 20s, you might want to look towards UCLA here, right? But that's our betting spots. I hope you get something from it. If you have any questions, please tweet me at the Public Dog or tweet us at the Odds Breakers. Let's move on to fantasy football with our guy, Dnasty. All right, and now we have fantasy football. We got our guy Dnasty back to help break down Fantasy Week 5. You can tweet him at Dnasty #1 if you have any questions. How the hell are you doing, Dave?
Good. How you doing, buddy?
I'm ready for fantasy football and a huge weekend. Didn't tell our listeners yet, but Dave and I are actually going to our first Buffalo Bills game ever. And we can't wait to meet up with our buddy Eric out there and witness this whole Bills Mafia thing. Dave, do you plan on flying off any trucks through any tables this weekend?
No, I don't, Kiev. We'll see what happens, though. There's nothing that alcohol can't do.
You know, there is maybe if they bring around the basketball hoop, we can try dunking on some people. But these days, I can't.
That I'm down for.
I can't jump so high these days, so I'm not so sure if I'll even partake in that. But I'm pretty excited to go to the Buffalo Bills, especially now that they've just been getting their asses kicked for the most part. You know, this fan base is going to be ready to go absolutely nuts. So couldn't have picked a more boring opponent, though, against the Tennessee Titans. I think the under should be about 25 points in this game. But
no kidding.
But we're going to have a good time either way, my friend. Let's start.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Let's start out with injuries in fantasy football week 4. What the hell happened this weekend?
Well, we got a couple major ones, actually, Kiev. We have Leonard Fournette, hamstring injury again. So he's going to be out for a while. He injured the same hamstring that he had injured before. So that's a major injury. And then Evan Ingram, the guy we talked about last week, he's actually going to be out 2 to 4 weeks now with the MCL sprain. Another tight end that's going to be out as well with the MCL sprain. They're looking at 2 to 4 weeks for him as well as O.J. Howard. So that's another injury that's of significance for the tight ends. And then for running back wise, Fournette was the biggest one this week. And then that's all I really have for injuries this week.
Yeah, I got a couple. Did you mention Eifert, Tyler Eifert?
Eifert, yeah, with the broken leg. And then the other one, too.
Broke his ankle.
His ankle, but I was thinking of Earl Thomas, actually. I'm sorry. Earl Thomas, actually, with the broken leg. He had contract squabbles with the Seahawks, and he'd just come back, and then he breaks his leg in one of his first games back, and then he gives everyone the "You are the number one" sign, little flying eagle, to the sidelines as he's being escorted off the field.
Very classy move by one of the former Legion of Boom, which is now definitely former now because they are gone. Looking at that defense, Jake Butt tore his ACL in practice last week, which was pretty bad for Denver. Although this Monday Night Football game we're watching, they're actually winning at halftime here. Tavon Austin's day-to-day with his shoulder. T.Y. Hilton cracked rib and hammy. Did you mention him?
No.
He's going to be out for a couple weeks, I think.
Sammy Watkins actually just got injured tonight as well. His hamstring. He left the game tonight. He hasn't returned, so he could be missing a couple weeks as well. They haven't said anything else though on the injury for tonight, though.
Yeah, nothing major, at least on the quarterbacks or Leonard Fournette's just this lingering hammy. If you got him, I'd consider trading him, especially if you didn't handcuff him with Yeldon. If you handcuffed him with Yeldon, you're fine, but if you didn't, see if someone will bite on him. This thing looks like it's going to linger for a long time. And this Devontae Freeman thing, that's not looking good either. This could be a year-long pain in the ass as well. So we'll see what happens there. So I'm going to start out with the waiver wire then. Tariq Cohen, only owned in 62% of leagues. He had 8 targets, 121 yards, and a TD. A lot of people dropped him because of frustration the first couple games, but you can see how dangerous this guy is. If you got enough, bench space, roster space, please stash that guy, man. He could turn into something really special later this year. Even Taylor Gabriel got 7 targets on the Bears. That first half ass whooping against the Buccaneers. It was nice to see my team do that, actually, and it was actually quite shocking to watch some of that myself. Nyheim Hines, running back for the Colts, he led the team in touches, and I know Mac's been out, but I think he's worked his way into this roster a little bit more, into the starting position, shared position when Mac comes back. Kiki Kuti, he had 15 targets for the Texans. That's a lot for a wide receiver. 15 targets, like that's kind of like DeAndre Hopkins level right there. So if I don't know if this is a fluke or not, but he could be one you can grab and try to stash. D.D. Westbrook, 13 targets for the Jaguars. Vance McDonald's. If you own Jesse James and